Okay, it's been a couple of days, so I'm going to do another part to Christopher's story. I think I left off where, well, first of all, thank you all very much for the comments. They're all so sweet. And for any of you who lost a child, I understand. I know that pain, I know how hard it is, and we never get over it. So I just want to thank you all for the nice comments. Okay, so I believe where I left off was the doctors asking us, or the doctors telling us that there was blood behind his eyes, and us saying why, and them telling us, you tell us why there's blood behind his eyes. We had no idea. I think I was maybe 21 years old when this happened. And my husband at the time was around 4 to 5 years older than I. So, from that first hospital, he was transferred. Yeah, they transferred Christopher to a trauma center, which dealt with children more. And so when we got there, they lied to us from the very beginning. Let me go back though. I remember the first hospital, there were two men in suits, and I definitely noticed them. I something stood out. I don't know. I didn't know at the time why, but they were looking at me. Okay, so second hospital, they tell us that there's no hope. It's not even 24 hours. My father-in-law at the time was away in Vegas, and so they're telling us there's no hope, and we can't understand why. We're begging them to please keep him on the life support for at least another day. Because when this happens to you, you don't give up hope. You have no choice. You have to hold on to any kind of hope that there is, or there may be, and just pray. I remember being on the floor in that hospital in a waiting room, just screaming, God, please don't take my baby. Please don't take my baby. So they let us keep him on life support overnight. And my father-in-law was on his way back from Vegas. Basically, they're telling us at this point, it's time to say goodbye. And they did every kind of test. They told us his brain was not active at all. There was one more test that they were going to do. I believe it had something to do with ice cubes in his eardrum and if it moved his eyes. I don't remember, really. A lot of it is a blur. But there are certain things that I do remember. For instance, they told us they wanted to do a test on his organs because remember, they're telling us there's no hope. And they want to test his organs because at that time, my husband and I spoke and we thought, if we can't have Christopher, maybe, just maybe, we can save another child with his organs. I'm sorry, the phone is probably shaking. I'm shaking. So apparently, well, allegedly, they went to do this test on his organs. That's not what they did. So what they did was they were checking him for bruising or any kind of, I don't know, any kind of sign of child abuse. I think we found that out at like the very last minute because they told us that. I don't remember how we found out, but I thought that was disgusting that they did that to us. Now, I had a 2-year-old at the time, Jojo. So when this happens to you, you want to completely crawl in a hole and you want to go with your child. You don't want to be here. But I had a 2-year-old child I had to live for. I had no choice because after you lose one, your biggest fear is going to be losing another. I don't care who you are. If this, God forbid, ever happened to any of you, your biggest fear is going to be to lose another child. So my father-in-law, I believe he gets back. And now family is gathering in the room. And I remember, oh my God, remember the tubes everywhere. And he just looked like he was sleeping. I remember my brother. I never saw him cry. And let me tell you, we went through a very traumatic childhood. And I never saw him cry until that day. And I just glanced over at him. And I remember a teardrop just falling and hitting his knee. And I just, oh my God, it's just, there's just so much going on in my brain right now thinking about it. Because you go right back to that time. Like it was yesterday. So everybody's holding him. We were playing music. We were playing Regina Belle, If I Could. And then, so we took turns holding him, my husband and myself. And then I think I held him last. And when the last note of that song played, his heart stopped. It took like 10 minutes for his heart to stop. They did not wait more than 24 hours. They shut his machinery down because they wanted to check him for child abuse. That's what it was. So they told us about the whole organ thing, and they told us we couldn't donate his organs. We didn't know why, but somebody had told us that they wanted to check him. So they were convinced that something happened. They were convinced that my husband or myself did something to our child. Christopher was so loved. I mean, I went through hell having him. And this just was so unreal that this was happening. I will never forget that day for as long as I live. So when they turned the machinery off and we held him until he passed, leaving that hospital was the hardest thing. We actually met somebody in the next room over, and they had, I think, a 2 to 3 month old, and his name, I'll never forget his name, Michael Emmett McCarthy, and we became friendly with the parents, Tracy and Glenn. So we would go and talk to them in between, because, you know, you can't sit in that room. You'll go crazy. We would go and talk to them and ask how their child was doing. It was just so unbelievable. It turns out that Michael Emmett McCarthy is actually buried diagonal. So we were right next door to each other in the hospital, and then at the cemetery, so Christopher's grave is like in the front, and then right behind him is Michael's grave. That blew my mind. We couldn't believe it. We had put things on his plot over the years, you know, numerous times, because I believe they moved away. But I'm going to say this. So when this first happened, I remember saying to myself, it just blew my mind how much I cried, how many tears I shed, because I remember questioning God, just like, first of all, how could he do this? How could you make me go through all of that, Christopher and I, through the birth, and then just take him from us? But I questioned, like, where do the tears come from? There's just so many. They don't stop. I don't know how. It just baffles my mind how much I cried. And I would envision, I would be home and I would be laying on his clothes because I wanted to smell him. And I would envision going to the cemetery this is really bad. I wanted to dig my child up so I can hold him. Just really morbid stuff. But I'm going to end this here because I don't like to tell the whole story. I need to sit and think because I'm all over the place right now. But I will tell more. I'll talk about the funeral, which is it's just a huge blur to me. I can't remember who was really there. But anybody going through this, I am so sorry. I know how you feel. We don't get over it. We get through it. And you will get through it. I know it feels like you're going to die right now, but you won't. You will make it. You have to.